All right, everybody, I'd like to introduce Henry Kudzic, or Hank as he's otherwise known. Served on the submarine USS Nautilus, which was built in 1930. And I'll let Hank take it to the reins from here.
Thank you so much. Nice to see so many nice people here. And my name is Hank Kudzic. I'm a submarine veteran. I did all my service years in the Navy on 2 submarines. I'm going to tell you about a young fellow about 16 years old. The year was 1941, December 7th. I was 16. 2 days after Christmas, that same month, I went to the recruiting station. I didn't lie. I told him I was 16 and I wanted to go in the Navy. He said, sure. My birthday was only 2 weeks away in January. He said, we'll do all the preliminaries, and after that, put up your right hand. You're going to be in the Navy, son. My mom wouldn't sign. She said, you're not going anywhere, son. My dad said, oh, he'll sign for me. I still had 1 year of school left. And I thought a Pearl Harbor attack was really devastating to me as a young, I was still shooting marbles. They're going to hand me a gun and say, go get him, there's a war on. I had a slingshot and a BB gun. I couldn't hit anything with either, with those things. But anyway, when I finally took the oath, I went to Great Lakes and everything moved real fast in those days. How did I get on a submarine? When I first got into Pearl, 5-6 inches of big, thick oil on Pearl Harbor. And they put you on work details. My first work detail, you remember what happened to the Oklahoma? There she lay. They put me on a work detail to take the dead bodies from the Oklahoma. And also the Ogallala, which was a mine layer. I didn't like that very well. Somebody had to tell me that those remains in the basket were human beings. My next work detail, they put me on a carrier called the Saratoga, and I was wire brushing paint, in wire brushing the freshwater tank. And we just left on a little shakedown, and a big loud explosion took place. What was that? Now this explosion took place about 20 feet to 25 feet from where I was working. What a wallops. They said, well, something hit us. Either a mine or maybe a torpedo. But there was a hole in the side of this carrier Saratoga. So we turned around, went back in. I said, I'm going to try to do something else, and nobody would listen to me. They say, you're going back there and wire brush that water tank. They say, you have any problems or you want help, you go to the chaplain. Okay. I went to see dear old chap, and I told him that what I wanted to do. I could see the submarine base from where I was, And he said, son, do you know what you're asking? He said, that's a very hazardous detail you're asking for. I said, I want combat. I want to, fight against the Imperial Japanese. What can I do? Yeah. Hey, well, he said, son, I'll tell you what. You go there and take their physical. You go there and take your head, get examined. And if you bring a paper back to me and I'll release you. And that's exactly what happened. I got over to the submarine base in Pearl and waited for a ship to come in. Late in May, the Nautilus 168 came from San Francisco. Excuse me. And I got assigned to her. Now, I didn't know much about submarines. I couldn't tell you the difference between a submarine and all I knew it was some kind of a craft that sailed on top of the water and you could sink yourself and hopefully you can get back up again. That's not a gimme. Well, the Nautilus was going on her first war patrol. Now, in those days, everything was first. It was the first war we had, the first patrol run, everything. Nobody knew. There wasn't a reference book you could open up and say, here's what you do in this case and this. That wasn't that way at all. They sent us in a patrol area around an island called Midway. Northwest of Midway was our first patrol. What is Midway? Midway is an atoll. What's an atoll? There's an island and there's an atoll. An island is secured to this very fiber of the planet we live on. And he breaks water. That's an island. An atoll is a growth of coral that grows over the years and years, and it finally will break the surface of the water. And when that happens, then the atoll becomes an island because it's completely surrounded by water. Only this had a lot of sand on it and coral. And the only natives on Midway were goony birds that love to dive and pluck your ears. And what else was Midway famous for? Oh, before the years of the war, there was an airplane called the China Clipper. Pan Am, China Clipper. And she flew from LA to the Orient. But before she got to the Orient, she stopped at Midway. Because there was a hotel there called the Goonyville Hotel. And I stayed there too, anyway. But anyway, then they boarded the next day and they flew to the Orient. All right, we're on. Nobody said there was going to be a battle here that we knew of. But we had a patrol area there. And what happened now is, listen closely. What did I do on a submarine? I was privy, a submarine has a conning tower, has a control room, and a bridge at top side. Bridge, conning tower, control room. And all my watches were right there. So I was privy to the conversation between the captain and the first officer or the exec. You probably want to know why I know all this stuff. Well, that's why, because in a conning tower you can bump elbows with the skipper looking out of the periscope. That was one of my watches. When you're running the periscope depth, about every 20, 25 minutes, you poke it up and you do a 360 to see, see if there's no surprises up there. One of my turns to look around, I spotted smoke on the horizon. Just smoke, black smoke. Didn't see any vessel. Told the officer who had there's smoke. I see smoke. He took a look. You're right. We actually surfaced and headed towards the smoke. Not a good thing to do, but we did that. So we could see a ship. See, all our ships are targets. We shoot torpedoes. Okay, when we got close enough, we dove. And now you make the plot. You're going to sink this guy. This happened to be, what do you know about Midway? They had 4 aircraft carriers. They lost. We had 4 carriers there. We only lost 1. This was an air battle. Yeah, this affair is an air thing. What am I doing here? A guy on a submarine. Anyway, it was. I'm just getting a little bit ahead of the Soryu. Before the Soryu, there was a flotilla that came by. Put up the scope, many warships and so forth, and skipper picked out 2 of them. A heavy cruiser and a cargo vessel. Skipper said, make tubes 1, 2, 3, 4 ready. Okay, skipper, tubes are ready. Came the word from the forward room. He got pretty close. Close to know it. They told him, this is a first for the skipper. The first torpedo he's going to fire in his life, I guess. Nothing like this ever happened. So he fired 1, 2 at the one ship, and he fired 2, 1, 3, and 4 at the other ship. He hit the targets, 2 exactly on the 2 ships, but the torpedoes did not explode. We had a problem with the firing devices, so we paid. We took some depth charges for this. First depth charges I ever heard in my life. You don't want to hear any of those. Well, we eased a lot of that because they didn't spend too much time depth charging us. They wanted to move on. And that's when we came up on the Soryu. I said the smoke and all that. Now the skipper was already made his plot to sink that ship. And he asked for 3 torpedoes. He wanted 3 torpedoes ready. But he was so disappointed. The name of my captain, or the skipper on the Nautilus, was Brockman. His first name was Bill Brockman. We called him Bull. The executive officer was Ozzie Lynch. Now this is, I say, the first for me. Everything that happened is going to be new to me. Never happened before. And between the skipper and the executive, they're trying to make sure they get this carrier down. And the carrier had 2 escorts, 2 destroyers. Now it had a little damage on it, so they were repairing the topside deck. They needed their aircraft to land on something. And this was the last place their aircraft, all the other carriers, the 3 were gone. And one of the tin cans was helping as much as he could. He was right alongside the carrier. So here again, I think we were a little closer than what we should have been. Later on, we found out that when a submarine should fire at 1,500 yards, no more, no further than that away, and certainly not any closer. Not if you think you can. But anyway, the skipper asked for 3 tubes ready. He got them, and he fired. But, you know, worrying, well, are these things going to explode? Or, you know, like the first 4 we fired didn't explode. So he fired the 3 at the Soryu. We found out this was the Japanese aircraft carrier Soryu, S-O-R-Y-U. When a torpedo explodes that you fired on a target, you can hear it very clearly. Underwater sound comes through great. When we heard the first explosion, we jumped up and down, so happy. So did the skipper. So his three torpedoes hit. 2 exploded. The first 2 exploded. The third one did not explode. And she rolled over. She had a little bit of list to begin with, but she rolled over. And of course, we took a hammer in from the tin can. But now, what she was taking survivors and all this here, trying to get all these, you know, the people that were on the. And there was a second one setting off in the distance. Now, all of a sudden, that second one, he'd come after us. If your target, if you hit him on the starboard side or on the port side or starboard side, that escort knows that you're on that side, the same where the torpedo exploded. So he come after us. Happened to be the port side, and he drops a whole bunch of depth charges. Hopefully he's going to catch you before you can get out of his depth charge range. And we managed to evade his attack, but he was still persistent in getting us. Now, the Nautilus was an old submarine, a large submarine. It was built between 1928 and 30. She was commissioned at 30. Already she was 12 years old. And she was 380 feet long, which is longer than the newer Gato class subs that were coming out. They were only 312. A few were 315. But anyway, because we were a large submarine, old Chester Nimitz had something else planned for us. This tin can was still coming after us, and the skipper and Ozzy were saying, what do we do? You know. Well, you're too close, skipper. He said, well, I'm going to get as close as I can. Like I say, there were no instructions as to how far you should be from your target. But what he did you know, this was a great skipper. And he got as close as he possibly could go. And he's going to poke the periscope up. Now, there's 2 scopes on a submarine. One for attack and one for plotting. He wants that destroyer to see our periscope. Why? Because he wants him in a certain position. Now he's going to fire straight on him. When he turns to come at us, he's going to fire. but he's going to be so close the tin can doesn't have enough time to get out of the way. That's called a down-the-throat shot. You better not miss, because he's not going to miss. And that's exactly what happened. He was at 750 yards. Suicide. When that tin can saw the periscope up the skipper that wanted him to see, he fired. Because he made the move, we blew him right out of his skivvies. There was one more we had to contend with. But we had to wait till the next day for that guy. He was loaded down with a lot of survivors that came off of the Soryo or in the water. So he was juicy target. He was a juicy target. And I thought about it. This is payback time for what these nips did at Pearl Harbor. Bull Brockman says, Ozzy, it worked once, maybe it'll work again. I'm going to give him the same treatment. So that tin can just hung around that area overnight. We weren't going to go anywhere, and he was going to get us. Now, other carriers were gone. Their planes had no place to land, only in the water. The same arrangement he used on this second one. Give him a down-the-throat shot. Get close as you can. It's either him or us. Boy, that's a heck of a thing to say so early in the war, you know. And I already tasted the depth charges, which I didn't like. Well, here again, he got as close as he could, around 750 yards. And he went through the same thing. Going to poke up the scope. Now, I happen to be on the helm's wheel. And you steer from the conning tower. Conning tower is a very tight quarters. You got the wheel there, you got two scopes. You got a mechanical torpedo data computer, which is one of the, now you got these little things that are computers. Well, we had one that looked like a refrigerator. And there's a little bit of radar stationed in there, so if you get 5 guys in there, it's pretty crowded. But anyway, that's what happens. Well, a skipper's going to shoot. So he has to have his torpedo ready. And he did the same thing. He poked it up and wanted that tin can to see the scope, and he fell for it just like the other guy. And down the throat, he even had a better shot at the second guy. And he blew him right out of his skivvies. So in 2 days, we had 3 chips. On this tin can, our executive officer, Ozzie Lynch. Ozzie Lynch was a camera nut. He was trying to devise a little adapter that would fit on the eyepiece of the periscope. But not much success. But Ozzie was trying. When the skipper's torpedo hit that second tin can, the captain was overjoyed, and he said, Ozzie, did you see it? Ozzie said, I didn't see a thing, Captain. Of course he didn't. He put his camera, and he finally, it worked. His camera stuck to the periscope eyepiece. And then Bull Brockman said, well, what do you think, Ozzie? Did you see it? I didn't see a thing, Captain. But of course he didn't. His camera had it all. And when he developed the picture, there it was. The first picture of a submarine sinking, and I have a picture. I'm going to show you that from a Life magazine. back in 1942. We were so happy. We pulled in the Midway to see what assistance, we could give to the people like just got her working over. And so we told Pearl Harbor, the command center, what we just did. And Tickle Pink, and we said, we're coming to Pearl. Hold on here, Nautilus. No, wait a minute. We got other plans for you. You're not coming here yet. You still got torpedoes left. We're going to send you to Honshu. Honshu is the bay right outside of Japan, the big bay. And they had a lot of ships there. That's why, Admiral Lockwood was in charge of the submarines in there. We didn't, we were short on everything because of what happened on December 7th. But we did have a few raggedy submarines that we put together, and we're going to go to war. So we went to Honshu, and you won't believe this, we got 5 ships. 5 ships we sank. We knew we were not going to get out of there. This was going to be it. Because everybody was depth charging. They were throwing everything at us. Now we had a submarine, they said, you can't take her any deeper than 200 feet. She's an old tub. She was made back in the days when they didn't know what to do with a submarine. Submarine has 2 hulls. Inside hull is a pressure hull. The new ones are 1-inch welded. Ours was a 1/2-inch riveted. Think about rivets. What does that bring to mind? The Titanic? You know what happened to her? Ours wasn't that bad. We didn't hit any icebergs, but the depth chargers really loosened those rivets up. And so they looked like a shower head. The deeper you went, the more spray you got. Because of all their action against us, I think helped us get out of there. Get out of the bay. And now we were heading for Pearl. Our first run is going to be over. It was. Guess who was there to meet us? You ever hear of a guy called Chester W. Nimitz? My hero. Chester was one of the greatest individuals I met. And he thanked us so much, and would tickle pink. When a submarine goes on patrol, the people on the dock, they're waving, they really mean it, they're waving goodbye. It was good to know you. They didn't think you were coming back. Believe it, that's how, we lost 52 submarines that way. Never came back. That interpolates to about 38, pretty close to 3,900 souls that died. But good old Chester, he gave me my lower, this is called the combat pin, which I would have climbed a 40-foot flaming wall to get that guy, get this one, because I wanted combat. And Chester gave it to me. He says, "Good luck, son." What do you say to an admiral? I just said, "Aye, aye." And to get this one, these are our dolphins, and they're qualification dolphins. Now, when you're assigned to a submarine, you don't have the dolphins, but you have to get them. You have to qualify. What that means is you have to take it upon yourself to learn everything you can about the boat. What this is, what that is, what this is, how to start an engine, how to get a torpedo ready, all these things. And then there's so many valves and, for different systems. He's going to ask you, give me an example now. See that valve? What's that valve for? What service? Is it water, fresh water, oil, what service? Or fuel oil? Or you have to know that. You have to know it. Is it normally open or normally closed? Okay, you have to tell them. This is the kind of questions you're going to be asked to qualify, amongst other ones too. But anyway, I qualified on the first run. Okay, now when you make your patrol run is a minimum of 60 days, or like I say, depending on how many torpedoes you have left. So we get 2 weeks R&R. Well, that's nice. 2 weeks R&R. When we hit the docks off a run, what are they? Waiting for us is milk, fresh milk, ice cream, and oranges. Because, this kind of stuff we didn't have. You have a lot of steaks and a lot of good food, but, And anyway, so when you get down, and you get the mail, if you have any mail coming. And then you put some things together. Now you're going to go to the Royal Hawaiian on Waikiki Beach for 2 weeks. That's your reward for coming back alive. So you can sleep as long as you want. We put as much beer in the bathtub as we could. And nice big band music and great food. And they even bring a few girls to dance with us. And so now when you get back to the boat, when your 2 weeks is up, there was a group of sailors came on, they call them the relief crew, and they make the boat, do what I have to be done, get her ready to go on patrol. And all we have to do is take on fuel, the ammo. Now I was a gunner's mate, so I had to check the pyrotechnics, the ammo, small arms and big, we had 2 big 6-inch guns. And so okay, we're getting ready for 2. I think the next day we were gonna set sail on our second war patrol. Well, I wanted to have a few more beers up at the beer hall before going to go on the next patrol. On the way back from the sub-base beer hall, where our sub was tied up, there was a whole bunch of Marines standing on the dock. What are you guys here for? You lose your way? What are you doing here? One of them says, "We're going on that." Get out of here. That's my submarine. You're going on there? Where are you going? Well, we soon found out. And they had their full battle gear with them. Now understand, there were 2 submarines there. The Argonaut, there was a group waiting to get on her and waiting a group to get on my submarine. 120 to be exact. And the Argonaut was under the command of James Roosevelt. My submarine was the Marines were under the command of George Evans Carlson. Now maybe some of you people who dig into this stuff know who I'm talking about. You ever hear the phrase gung-ho? Carlson's Raiders. These were top elite fighting best that we had, to go on an island and destroy it. This island happened to be called Macon Island. What about Macon Island? Where's Macon Island? Well, somebody said, you know where Guadalcanal is? There was stiff fighting on Guadalcanal. And we weren't doing too good on Guadalcanal. Macon Island was very close to Guadalcanal, south of it, and the Japanese were using Macon Island as a staging point to supply the supplies to Guadalcanal. That's why they were doing good, and we weren't doing so good, fighting on Guadalcanal. Now our job, we had to give Carlson's Raiders, 2 submarines, a ride to Macon. We had rubber boats outfitted topside, lashed down. We had to supply air to these rubber boats. They had little motors on, but the difficult task was to get from the sub to shore. A lot of things on a submarine happen at night. Why? Because you don't want the enemy to know you're there. Well, some of these when the boat was inflated, the skipper, he sank the boat a little bit after we had them air in it, so that they would float. So then up came the Marines, and they jumped in these boats, 120 of them. Now, some of the motors they were supposed to propel these things didn't work, or they worked for a short time and then they cut out. So they had to paddle their way to the beach, and the surf was extremely rough for them, and they had to, some of them upset it and everything else. But they managed to get on Macon Island and do their job. And what a job they did. They destroyed everything to put this island out of commission. We helped too. On shore they told us where a big fuel tank was, or when a supply service was. So we just did our part, and I think we fired 60-some rounds of 6-inch rounds, and basically set Macon Island on fire. As we were bringing the Marines in, we noticed there were 2 ships tied alongside a dock, and so we went back, and we're not going to pass those up. We're going to get those guys. So we did it with our guns, and we set them on fire, and that was it. Well, anyway, there was a seaplane flying around, and every time during the day we'd come up and try to assist by shooting and all that, and he would strafe us. So we didn't like that. But I know I happened to take one. We had machine guns on, and they had 50 calibers, and I shot at him. He was sitting in the water. Wasn't even flying yet. So we caught him and when his wing flew off, he ain't gonna fly anywhere. We didn't have to worry about him. The thing we had to worry about, and this is the part I don't like to talk about it. It becomes emotional for me. But I want to tell you about these brave souls. Out of 240 Marines, Carlson's Raiders, we lost 30 of them. 30 of them died. 30 of them died when they brought their bodies ashore. A few of them died on the submarine. These are our own people. These are our own people. what do you do with some dead Marines on the sub? They've got to be buried with dignity. A submarine is not like a surface ship. You know, we don't, tight, limited a lot of things. What kind of shroud can we bury these poor souls in? Somebody mentioned sea bags. We had some sea bags. It takes 2 sea bags for one Marine. You put one around his legs, one over his head. You put some weight between his feet, and through the grommets you lace it up. And that's how he's going to be committed, his soul, to the ocean. I say everything happens at night. Well, you keep them in that condition until you can bury them from topside. The skipper says a few nice words, and now you just don't throw this poor soul over the side. No. I said they have to be buried with dignity. So you get them as low as to the water as you possibly can, which it's not an easy thing to do in a submarine. But anyway, you find a way to do it, and you let the body slip into the deep. And between the 2 submarines, I said they lost 30. So we had a good share, and they had a good share. We felt pretty good. We did manage to sink a few patrol vessels before we left there. Now, we were heading back to Pearl Harbor, you know, for the end of our second war patrol. I'm not going to keep you here that long, because I made 14 war patrols. We went back into Pearl Harbor. Can you guess who was there waiting for us? Chester W. Nimitz again. Our friend. My friend. Oh, I was asked. I spoke before, and people, you know, heroes. Those Marines we buried, they're the heroes. They're the heroes. They're going to the bottom of the ocean. They're not going home anymore. I said, yeah, I have it. I can mention a few heroes I have. Nathan Hill, when I was in school yet, I was so still young, I was thinking about the Revolutionary War. Nathan Hill said, I regret I only have one life to give to my country. I thought he was a hero for that before they hanged him. The second one. You ever hear a guy called Colin Kelly? Colin Kelly was our first hero of World War II. Now, Colin Kelly was a bomber pilot in Europe. Remember me saying there was no reference book that these fighting men could open and see what they must do under these certain conditions? No. Actually, we were writing the book, you know. We were only up to run 2, but we were still writing the book. But anyway, Colin Kelly was a little too low, and the bomb, his explosions, which was sinking whatever he was at, because that's why he was very low, but they brought him down. They damaged his plane, and he died. Colin Kelly, the first World War II hero. Who is my third hero? I keep mentioning his name a couple of times. The Admiral, Chester W. Nimitz. A great man. Here again, off we went to the Royal Hawaiian, and 4-hour, 2 weeks R&R. Now after when I was on the first run, and we got, at Midway and got depth charged so heavily, I said, I am not going to go on. I'm going to get off of this thing because a man could get killed. But before we left to Macon Island, who was the sailor that threw off the bow line? You're looking at him. I had to be on the sub and not on the dock, so I went on patrol too. I said that on the next one, going 3-2, but I was starting to get hooked.